You're listening to Getting Real with Réal Andrews and Alex Urbina right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Go ahead and give us a call at 661-298-5487. That's 661-298-KHTS. Especially if you're a veteran, we'd love to hear from you today. The topic of our show is sacrifices. I'm Réal Andrews, and I'm an actor, a father. I love to fish, best known as Lieutenant Taggart on General Hospital. But what I'm very passionate about is helping people to achieve their goals. And recently, I teamed up with Alex Urbina here. And Alex, tell us a little bit about what you bring to the team.
I'm a transformational life coach. Been doing this for about 20 plus years. I help people get inside the gap and look at what's missing from them as the source of their own results. And get real, get honest, and see how you can take yourself to the next level. Yeah, and what I love about, I kind of say me and Alex, we're the perfect 1-2-3 punch. I bring the fitness side of it, the passion, the motivation. Alex brings the intellectual, emotional, and spiritual, and together we inspire people to be everything that they were created to be. And we got some exciting news today, Alex. We have a new sponsor. This show is brought to you by the Rebeccas, Rebecca Mendoza and Rebecca DeLuca, the top realty people, in my opinion, in this area. And when I think of them, I think of honesty, integrity, character. Yeah, absolutely. I think of a power team. Just they're not really a couple, but they're together they just make the perfect team. And what I love most about them is they're compassionate, they're caring, and they have integrity. Yeah, and when we were looking for a sponsor, we were hoping to partner up with somebody with these kind of qualities. So I'm really, really excited about where that's going to go. So that is the Rebeccas, and Rebecca DeLuca and Rebecca Mendoza. So let's jump right in. Today we're talking about sacrifices, and that can mean a lot of different things to different people. But we were talking about this the other day, Alex, and I'm just going to throw it right to you. And sacrifice, what does that mean to you? For me, it means to give up something to get something. So you got to be willing to, part ways with whatever it is that, you're used to getting so that you can receive something of greater value. And, especially on today, for today in honor of, Veterans Day, I think that's the ultimate sacrifice, is not only to put your life on the line, but, they pay some prices in their own life, in their interpersonal life. They have to not be with their family on holidays. They have to put their fears aside. Sometimes they have to cut their feelings off, put their emotions on a pause so that they can maybe survive through the night or get over whatever battle they got to overcome. There's a lot of sacrifices that these men and women, give up, and the prices that they pay for our freedom, to stand for something, stand for a greater world. Yeah, as we were preparing for this show, actually this morning, I did a Veterans Day class in honor of the veterans. I just put the real heroes through a Veterans Day workout. I always try to, do an extra hard workout to try to mimic. And it almost sounds, that just sounds almost like weak, because you really can't mimic. But just to say, let's just suffer a little bit for an hour. But the difference is we get to go home after that hour. We get to get in our nice plush car. We got to go, hey, that was a great job, And as I was preparing for it, as I do all the time, I try to put myself in their shoes. And, I just really can't imagine, and I always make a habit whenever I see a veteran, somebody dressed in military gear, law enforcement, firefighters, I always say, hey, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for my family. My family thanks you. My kids thank you. My grandkids thank you. My great-grandkids thank you. And the other day I met this gentleman, and I said that to him. And he said to me, he said, thank you. He said, and we started talking, and he said, there was a while when if you said that to me, I'd get really pissed off. And I was like, I'd never heard that before. And I go, what do you mean? And he goes, well, when I came back and people would say, I want to thank you, I'd be like, well, thank me for what? For killing people? I mean, that's what I was, what I was doing. I was killing people for a living. And I was like, wow, that's kind of like, heavy when you think about it. Yeah, I think they needed to figure out how to make sense of what they were being asked to do. and some of them are still in that process. Some of them are in the early process, and some of them are on the back end of the process. I have uncles that were in Vietnam, and they were in serving in the military, and it takes them, for some of them, takes them years. Some of them get stuck there, and they don't know how to really make sense of it, or they give up trying to figure it out, and they just kind of live with some of the casualties that they come back with.
Is that why? Do you think there's a correlation there? Because there's problems in marriages a lot in those kind of occupations.
Yeah, just like any kind of service profession that you're in, you're gonna again sacrifice some things, and sometimes relationships suffer when you're sacrificing your body, your commitment, your time, to something of greater value. And like I said, sometimes people in law enforcement, or firemen, or ambulance drivers, people that have a certain commitment, either to make the world a better place, or to stand a line, or to protect somebody, or whatever it is. When they sign up for that job, they know that there's prices to pay. And that's some of the sacrificing that people are willing to do, because they either, love what they do, or they're passionate about it, or they see it as an honor. It's my honor to do this. It's my honor to be in service. And there, again, it comes some sacrifice with that. People don't just, you're not going to just be able to get, to be able to create those kinds of results without having to pay a price.
Yeah, there's one person obviously important in my life, and it was about a couple years ago, January, Martin Luther King month. My middle son came home, and he was like, "Dad," he's like, "Martin Luther King was a great man." And I looked at him, I go, "Yeah, he was, son. Why do you say that?" And he was like, "Well, if it wasn't for Martin Luther King, I would have never been born." And I said, "Why do you say that?" And he says, "Well, because of what Martin Luther King fought for, you and Mom were able to meet, because, I have a mixed marriage." And I was like, wow, and I've said that before, when we're talking about sacrifices, and I want to turn it over to the real world, in my world a little bit, when, for example, let me change gears a little second. When just the other day I said, we're getting ready to do some really intense training for 9 days, just 9 days. 9 days, 1 hour a day in the morning, 3 days with you, 3 hours at night in a nice, cushy, warm room, having a chance to be better. Just 9 days out of your life that you could possibly come out the back end a better person. And I say, are you ready to make this commitment, sacrifice? And some of the people are already, yes, let's go. But some people are like, well, I want to do it, but I was thinking about maybe going skiing that weekend, or, I want to do it, but I got this party coming up. So, that's not a sacrifice. You're telling me that party is worth more than the opportunity that in 9 days you could be in a completely different place in your life and never look back.
Yeah, when you're talking about something that you're committed to, and this is a whole nother show. When we talk about commitment, we're going to really break down that distinction. But commitment is, this is what I want. This is what I'm yearning for. This is what I'm committed to. And you put everything you got into being focused on just making that happen, which means that sacrifice is going to come into play, because you're going to have to give up on some of the goodies that you're used to having, whether it's comfort, or whether it's pleasure, or whatever it is that you have on your plate that you like to do. You're going to have to give up some of that stuff so that you can have the benefit that your hard work and your commitment and your dedication and your time and effort and everything goes to this, so that it pays off. And I think that, maybe it's a lost art that some of the younger generation, the millennials, aren't learning, or maybe it's, there's a good possibility that as parents, we're not teaching our kids that. We could be enabling our kids from learning that type of experience of what it's like to sacrifice. And that's a whole nother show on itself, is that we could be enabling our kids and robbing them from that opportunity to learn what it's like to pay some prices, to sacrifice some things in life, so that they get the payoff, the goodies that come with hard work and giving things up.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be, I was going down the road with Martin Luther King. Let's take the extreme, because let's be real. Let's keep it real. If you think for a second that Martin Luther King in his journey, every single day, not once in a while, every single day, when he hugged his wife and kissed her goodbye and looked down at his 3 little babies and kissed them goodbye, that he didn't know that could be the last time that he'd ever see him, but his sacrifice for his cause was worth it. And as a matter of fact, a lot of people don't even know this. The last speech, I've been to the mountaintop, I've seen what's out there, that was not what he was supposed to say. That was when he got up on there and said he had a vision. And they were sitting there, this people, his crew, reading the speech that he was supposed to see, and he was reading that, and then hours later he gets, assassinated.
Yeah, and what I love most about working out with you in the gym is that you're always pushing me to the next level. And it was probably about a month ago or so, we did... You put me in some kind of a workout. Was it a 9/11? Was September 11th?
Yeah, probably, yes. Yes.
I remember, it was kind of like a day like today. I didn't work out with you today, but I'm sure it was pretty intense, like the September 11th. And the workout was designed to, like you said, not mimic, but give you just a taste of what some of those firemen would have been going through on that day where they were rushing up into a burning building while everyone's running out. And you put us through this rigorous workout. And I remember when I felt, dead dog tired, it was you were throwing a 30-pound heavy ball on my stomach, saying, "Okay, now run around the building with this." And I looked at you like you were crazy. But what it gave me was, as I'm running around and I felt like I had nothing left in me, I kept thinking about those firemen that felt like they had nothing left, and they just kept digging and kept digging and kept digging. And to me, when we're working out, and when I say stuff like, I feel like I'm peeling back a new layer of champion, I feel like all the sacrifice, the sweat, and the exhaustion and the power naps in between the day, and all that is going to add up to some greater value. And that's the sacrifice that we're talking about, is not making or letting the excuses, because everyone has excuses. I mean, all of us can come up with excuses, but deciding that you're not going to have excuses, that your commitment is bigger than the excuses, and you're willing to sacrifice a little bit here and there to make it turn out, is, I think, the difference between the 3% of the world versus the 98% of the world.
Right. And, we're talking about some extremes, so let's pull it back and go 180 degrees the other way, because I'm sure we've got some listeners that are like, hey, that's cool and everything, but I'm not Martin Luther King, and I'm not ready to run into a burning building. The sacrifices are things like, for me, we joked about it, but it's a sacrifice. It's a little one that I can do in a heartbeat. I'm not even going to give it a second thought, because that's how I roll. But my big thing, I don't watch a lot of TV. In fact, I think TV is a waste of time, okay? Even though it's a medium that I work in. But I love my Monday Night Football. And what did I say to you? When you said, well, we're going to have that intense 3 hours, I was like, ooh, that's my Monday Night Football night. For a second. But boom, that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Maybe you like to watch The Voice. Maybe you like to watch The Thing. I mean, TV is, if people would make that sacrifice, that's a huge detriment from people getting their goals. The amount of time that they waste watching TV. Maybe, what are some other sacrifices that the average person could make in their life? Little bites, like we talked about last week, to start working down the field to the bigger goal.
I think just anything where it comes to personal growth, anything where you're growing and getting yourself to the next level, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, in all realms, you're picking one and deciding, this week, this is what I'm going to dedicate it to. And what are some of the what are the things I'm willing to surrender? Okay, I'm willing to give up, my Facebook time for this month, or I'm willing to give up, the goodie time that I get for myself, or I'm willing to give up a manicure appointment to be able to handle this or to commit to that. But I think that, when it comes down to getting yourself to the next level or growing, I think that, that's what's important. I never forget a movie that I watched. There's a scene where the guy asked the kid, he said something like, you want to ask yourself, look back at all the things that you've been doing and ask yourself, has any of it helped the quality of your life? Has any of it improved your life? And I think that's a great question to live your life out of. Look at some of the things that you're doing and ask yourself, is what I'm doing right now supporting my growth, or is it actually taking away from my growth? Is it what I'm doing right now, is it a distraction, or is it actually part of my vision? Is it actually part of the way that I want to grow and get to a certain point? Yeah. Being in those questions is important to ask yourself, that self-reflection.
Yeah, and that reminds me of, in the career that I do that there was a time when they said you got to give up something, whether it's golf or whatever, so you could be better in the direction that you're trying to go. Is this helping you? And for me, it was fishing. I'm a fishing freak. I seriously, I would fish every single day, all day long. Go up to Castaic Lake here in the morning, get my rod in, go back at night, or whatever. So for me, that was my sacrifice. Was I stopped fishing literally for 3 years, but the sacrifice was worth it, because at the end of the thing, now I can fish whenever I want, with whomever I want, however I want, on my time, because of the sacrifices that I made to get there. So it's all relevant. What are you doing, and where do you want to go? What do you see down the road? Where are you trying to go? Is that helping you? And the true thing, like when I take that into the gym, I get questions all the time. Well, can I have some cheese, or can I have alcohol, or can I have this? And the question really is, what I love that you've taught me, Alex, is I love to ask people questions like, now when somebody says, well, you know what, I've hit a plateau, and I'll sit there and I'll look at them and go, well, why do you think that is? And instead of giving me, so then they start thinking, and what's really crazy and cool, if I just sit there and shut up, eventually they figure it out.
Absolutely. Silence is powerful when you ask a question. Just in that awkward silence is what forces somebody to really look at themselves. A lot of times we don't really want to look at ourselves. We avoid actually the ability to do some self-reflection. But that's why that's the power of having a coach, someone that's willing to ask you those tough questions that you don't ask yourself, like, why do you do that? Or what's in it for you, or what's your payoff, or we don't do that. We don't self-regulate like that. So to have a coach that's committed to asking you those questions and put you on the spot so that you can look at yourself and just kind of, go, oh, okay, I get it. I obviously was doing that for a payoff. Great, what's your payoff? Now in hindsight, looking back, it was to get attention, or it was to feel better about myself. Like when you ask somebody when they come in and they're, either boasting or going from person to person, trying to get that little goodie or that attention, and now all of a sudden your coach asks you that question, it forces you to look at yourself and really kind of peel the onion back and look at what was underneath all of that. Well, why were you doing that? Or why were you creating the drama? Well, and what was it all about? Why was the drama being created? And you have to really look at yourself and see what the answer is.
That why is a powerful word. You just keep asking why, keep unpeeling. I love that, Alex. Let's hold on to that. We'll come back with that. You're listening to Getting Real with Réal Andrews and Alex Urbina right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.